some of the verses, actually most of them has this issue. They can be pronounced differently depending on the accent or dialect of the tribes. So these dialects are narrated in time. They were narrated, and we reached so far accepted 7 of them, and +3. Why I am saying +3? Because the +3 is not there is no consensus of those three different variants are part of Quranic readings, but there are at least around 10 different variants, and all of them has 2 different sub variants. So this will be discussed in this topic as well. I know it is quite a lot. And the authenticity and the undistorted nature of the text of Quran. So this science deals with the problem of tahrif. Tahrif is alteration, because some scholars in the past claim that Quran was altered. So what do we mean by this? What did they mean by this? They meant Quran, what we have as Quran is not what Muhammad alayhi salam brought from Allah. So these people, when they say this, mostly we need to remember that these people actually do believe every word and even letters, even pronunciation was from God. Do you remember that discussion we had last week? We were talking about the verses, and are the words of the Quran from God, or the meaning is from God and the words are from Muhammad himself alayhi salam and his way of speaking Arabic. So this is a discussion which we dealt a little bit, and we will hopefully deal more. But in this science, people who believe that Quran was changed, they claim that the words are from God, but that they were altered by other people or by other traditions. But the authority of the apparent meanings of the verses. So this is how important, how is the authority of the Zahir, which we discussed as well in the first session in Marseille, as you remember. Zahir and Batir, the apparent meaning and the mystical deep meaning. So this is about the authority of Zahir. The question of abrogation. Abrogation is called nasakh, and it is about some verses being abrogated but by the others. What does it mean? One verse comes after talks about something, and then another verse is revealed after years, sometimes after months, but sometimes even after days. Another verse is revealed saying that giving a completely different law. And that when scholars dealt with this issue, they said that the second verse abrogates, it means cancels the authority of the previous one. So this is gonna be discussed under this science. And believe me, one of the most important sciences of Quranic sciences is nasakh. So we will most probably deal with nasakh a little bit longer. The ambiguity of the text, its origin, equivocal and unequivocal verses. This deals with some verses being clear and understood by everyone. Some verses are being not understood and cannot be understood, depending on the scholar's view, cannot be understood by everyone. And which verses are these? Which is called muhkam mutashabih.
In my opinion, I'm sorry, in my opinion, this is really an important thing for us.
Definitely.
Because we are constantly inclusive and progressive imams are constantly confronted with discussion about, well, this verse says this, and this is a clear verse. Often those people mix them up or bring confusion in that. So this is a very important thing for us to know how to distinguish them from each other, and also have the dogmatic view of that. That's really important in my opinion.
Definitely. And also to actually, to an extent, we will discuss actually, is there any direct verse completely understood by everyone? We will discuss that hopefully in detail as well. And the miraculous nature of the Quranic texts, and etc. So, as it manifests, there is no logical or didactic order between most of the above-mentioned topics. Thus, the word sciences is in the plural form of it, in order to denote the independence of most of these topics from each other. So, we do not use Quranic science, but we use Quranic sciences because most of these topics which we talk, these ones, all of them are actually, it seems they are separate from each other, because the variant readings almost has no connection with abrogation. So how do we connect these all? They are all connected under one thing, which is Quran itself. So that's why they are all called Quranic sciences. So what brings all these together is, in fact, that they are all revolved around one of some aspects of Quran. So the knowledge of tafsir is in many areas is in need of this science. What do we mean by this? Many of the scholars, when they do the mufassirs, when they do exegesis on Quran, they use these sciences to understand more better or precise, or for some of them to manipulate and go around some verses, because in the history we saw many of the scholars who did and wrote their studies not for the sake of its like Quran, to understand Quran, but sometimes to make their understanding of Quran valuable through Quran. So they had already some understanding of Quran, but instead of getting those understandings from Quran, they found a dalil, the proofs or arguments from Quran using these sciences to make their point valid. Unfortunately, this was a big problem and still going on. By the way, as you mentioned right now, when we encounter any traditionalist or like non-progressive scholar, they would bring us verses just to condemn us or to condemn our understanding, our understanding of Islam and Quran. So for that, they will use these sciences to say that even some verses, when we mention, they will say, "Oh, those verses are abrogated," or that verse is, as you said, for example, it is mutashabih. It cannot be understood. That's why we shouldn't use it as an argument. So when we do not know these sciences, we will not be, unfortunately, able to argue and debate or refute their arguments. So scholars of Ulumul Quran, Quranic sciences, they differ in number of topics discussing this discipline. So as we said, Quranic sciences are not one or two. There are more than a few, and every scholar has their opinion how many of Quranic sciences we do have. So Badruddin al-Zarkashi, he believed there were 47. While Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, in his Itqan, he enlisted around 80 titles. For sure, there are others who believe there are 146 and there are 130 and less or more. But these two are very important scholars. Actually, especially the second one, Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, he is kind of referred as the father of Quranic sciences because of his contribution and his writings, and especially his main book, also called Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, the perfection in his Quranic sciences. That's a very important book, by the way. If you can find, just try to read a little bit. And it is traditional. It's very strictly traditional, by the way. So the range of the titles, as we discussed a little bit earlier, are like generally in historical discussions are in topics like nature, duration, chronology, and causes of revelation, which is all discussed under the title of Wahi, Ilm al-Wahi, the science of revelation, and compilation, retention, and unification of Quran, which is also discussed under Mus'haf and like codexes. Consonantal and vocal texts and different recitation and their origins, like we said, qira'at, ilmul qira'at, the science of recitation. So, and also it also includes theological and conceptual topics like impossibility or non-occurrence of the alteration, which we discussed, tahrif al-Quran, and the other many other sciences. So, but as I said, these are not related to each other, but all of them shares one thing in common: Quran itself. But some of them has some other stuff in common as well, and that's why there has been some classifications of these sciences. For example, there are few actually. They divide into 3, they divide into 5, and more and less. But I will just go for the one of the example of these classifications. It is dividing these sciences into 3 main classes. One is literal, conceptual, and the historical one. So the first category, the literal one, includes and it deals with the sciences that are about the literal aspects of Quran. For example, pronunciation, the pronunciation of Quran. So it is called tajweed, how to pronounce every letter, and how to pronounce verses, and how to pronounce letters connection with the other letters. And the other science is called qira'a, recitation. And that's also, as we discussed, different dialects of reading of Quran. And the rasmul khat, calligraphy, the writing style of Quran, and how many chapters, verses, words, and letters exist in Quran, which we discussed last session, as you remember. So these are generally under the title of literal sciences. The second category, which is conceptual, that includes tanzil and figurative interpretation, ta'wil, esoteric and exoteric meanings, like zahir and batin meanings of the verses, and the stand of the verses, abrogation, the nasakh, muhkam and mutashabih, univocal and equivocal, and brief and elaborate, mujmal and muayyan, and also it goes on general and specific, and on and on. And the historical class, which can go the history and the order of revelation. So when was which verse revealed before the other and after the other, and the history of the writing. This is an important topic as well, history of writing. Actually, I believe this should be one of the first sciences when Quranic science is discussed. But historically and traditionally, these are discussed the last and the least, actually, because this does not. As the traditional scholars believe, Quran was not changed in whatsoever in general. When they approach Quran, they just name some different narrations about the writings and the history of the writing and the compilation and the collection of the verses and how it was collected. But these are generally these should be criticized because they do not seem, so this is going to be quite harsh to say, but they do not seem to, how do I put it, to valid and objective. They are mainly very subjective, and they are, when they approach it, they mainly are already have the idea of about Quran, and then they approach Quran. So that's why I believe this is very important, the addition, the history of the Quran. So what is there are different sciences which deals with Quran, and there are different styles of the these sciences. Let's differentiate between especially Ulum al-Quran and Ma'arif al-Quran, which if you translate in English, both can mean the sciences of Quran or knowledge of Quran. So Ulum al-Quran, as we said that what we were discussing, these sciences are generally called Ulum al-Quran, but Ma'arif al-Quran is a little bit different, and also it's a very recent studies, and it is this, the studies on subjects that deals with the text of the Quran, such as Tawheed. So what does Ma'arif al-Quran do? Ma'arif al-Quran is kind of tajweed, tafsir, exegesis. So Ma'arif al-Quran, so-called, this is mainly about the interpretation of the verses of Quran, but unlike traditional tafsir style, unlike traditional exegesis style, it does not start like from Fatiha to Nas, from beginning to end. It doesn't go. What it does is it takes topics like Tawheed, and then it brings all the verses related to Tawheed, and then discuss those all verses together and make the most out of them about Tawheed.
A German scholar, let's say, is working on that right now, and he published the first book, and there will be 29 more, especially in that way, taking the topics in each book and going through the whole scripture.
Yeah, there are actually. It is a very new science. It is like last century. It was kind of established. Before that, it was not common and known, because generally when they do tafsir, they go from beginning till the end. They do different styles, like they do like they do tafsir of the Quran through the revolution history, chronology of revolution, but it's again they go from beginning to till the end. But Ma'arif al-Quran, it does not deal with that. And there's another thing, if such topics are studied thematically. So this is Ma'arif al-Quran deals with like topics, just topics. But when we study these topics thematically, all together or separately, and just dealing with the verses and studying them, it is also called thematic exegesis, tafsir al-mawdu'i. So in a way, Ma'arif al-Quran and Tafsir al-Mawdu'i, these two titles are actually either same or very similar studies. So here we will a little bit discuss about the history of these Quranic sciences. An analysis of Islamic traditions and historical records show that some of the topics included in the science of Quran date back to the time of the Prophet, companion of Prophet. Actually, even further, this science goes back to the Prophet himself as well. He also discussed some of them, but as during his era, during his time, as he was seen the major authority, he was just saying it. He was not discussing and making. There was not science about around these discussions, because what he was saying was the authority. So that's why it was not really discussed in details. But we know even during his time, when he was alive, there were sahabas, the companions, who were debating around these topics sometimes. So, for example, there is an example from Imam Ali alayhi salam that he says, no single verse of the Quran was revealed to the Prophet unless he made me recite it. He dictated to me and I wrote it with my own handwriting. He taught me its figurative interpretation, ta'wil, and outer explanation, tafsir, its abrogation and abrogated verses like nasakh, and as well as the univocal and equivocal verses. So it seems Ali kind of already started this kind of sciences before we named these sciences, before when we used ulum al-Quran as a name for these sciences, which was already there. And we find books and epistles written on different topics on these sciences from the early years of Islamic scholarship. So we can't say that especially in early times of the Islamic history, especially scholarly history, we can't say that there were scholars dealing with all of these topics. But we know that there were scholars who were dealing with topics individually. Like few of them are dealing revolution. Some of them has written about nasakh. Some of them has written about the muhkam mutashabih, equivocal, unequivocal, and the others. So they were not all discussed all together, as actually they have never been discussed all together as well. Even in the book of Suyuti, only 80 of them are included, not the ones that actually are different and the other scholars believe they exist, which Suyuti did not believe they existed. So he did not include in his book, but they were studied by other scholars. So the early epistles usually did not deal with all of these sciences, as I said. And so what we know from this are, for example, the very, very, very early book called Kitab al-Qira'ah, the book of recitation. It is by Yahya bin Ya'mur. Sorry, my typing. So it is by Yahya bin Ya'mur, and he writes a book in early first century of Islam. He writes a book, and it is about the recitations. He did not deal with all of the topics, but he dealt with recitation. And also, Ibn al-Nadim lists 250 such books and epistles in his catalog, which was written in 4th century of Islam. So he says that almost 250 such books or booklets existed during the first centuries. And also later Sharif al-Radi wrote Talkhis al-Bayan fi Majaz al-Quran. So it is here abridged explanation of metaphors in Quran. And also he wrote again Haqa'iq al-Ta'wil fi Mutasabih al-Tanzil, true interpretation and equivocation of the revelation. So here he also dealt with the some of the sciences of Quran, but not all of them altogether. They do two book of which is also in the 4th century. The more comprehensive books with the newly coined title of Ulum al-Quran started to appear at the beginning of the 4th century of Islam. Like Ibn Marzban, Al-Hawi fi Ulum al-Quran, and also Al-Ash'ari, Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, Al-Muqtazan fi Ulum al-Quran. So these two books, from the early 4th century, they were written about the Quranic sciences, including most of the sciences, not all, but most of the sciences. But this era culminated in the monumental work of Suyuti, as we discussed earlier. He is the father, one of the very important one. He's kind of referred as father of Ulum al-Quran, and he writes Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, meaning perfection in the Quranic sciences. And before him, Zarkashi wrote Al-Burhan fi Ulum al-Quran, the argument in the Quranic sciences, or the proof of the Quranic sciences. So he wrote almost more than a century before Jalaluddin Suyuti, and he is also a very, very important scholar. But Suyuti, he takes the head in this discussion. So this was for my another presentation, actually. Just quickly catching. Yeah, it is done. So basically, these are the Quranic sciences and the meaning. So what we are going to do now, I think we should go and deal with the one of the sciences, the first one, early one, which is revolution. Slide. Yep, from the beginning. Yeah. So Montgomery Watt, which is an important as well scholar, we need to know him. He is a very important scholar. He wrote a lot about Quran, and most of his writings are in English. Please, if you can find, go for it. And also in French as well, some of them, I believe. You hopefully, Majid, you also can check if you want. And he presents the following possibilities for the source of revelation. Sometimes Muhammad may have heard the words being spoken to him, but for most part he seems simply to have found them in his heart. Whatever the precise manner of the revelation, sorry, my cat is here. Puppy, go home. Go your bed. Not here. Whatever the sorry guys for that. Whatever the precise manner of revelation, the important point is that the message was not the product of Muhammad's conscious mind. He believed he could easily distinguish between his own thinking and these revelations. His sincerity in this belief must be accepted by the modern historian, for this alone makes credible the development of a great religion. The further question, however, whether the message came from Muhammad's unconscious or the collective unconscious functioning in him, or from some divine source, is beyond the comprehension of the historian. So, who is Montgomery Watt? He's an Orientalist. He writes about Quran, and he's quite a good one, as I said. And in his writing, he says it's introduction to the Quran. Please, if you can, please find it and just check if you would like. He believed, although he was an Orientalist, he kind of believed that from his understanding of all the traditions and history of Quranic science and everything, he said that these verses clearly does not come from Muhammad's conscious mind. So he says these are not what Muhammad decided to write about. These are, but he also, as a scientist, he also doesn't say that this came from a divine source directly. He says, I don't know if it came from a divine source or it was his unconscious mind or unconscious functioning of everything. So he kind of talks, when he talks about these revolutions, he kind of says that it was different. When Muhammad received his revelation, he also take it differently. So what is revelation? The word revelation means, in Arabic, it is actually wahi. So the term, generally, this term is used for revelation, and it means to pass information on quickly and secretly. So this is strange. By way of a signal, a whisper, or a secret note. Anything you pass with lightning speed to someone else to make him understand is wahi. So wahi, what's that?
It's a link for Montgomery Watt. The two main things that we have from him: Muhammad at Medina and Muhammad at Mecca.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
I will send a second link also. Just continue.
So Ragib al-Isfahani, he says the root meaning of wahi, which is the word is wahaya, is actually mean quick signal. Doesn't, so not direct speech. That's weird. Not direct speech. It is quick signal. So Zechariah, also when Prophet Zechariah, for example, went out of the temple, the verses talks about his coming from temple. So it's the verse says, so he emerged before his people from the temple and awha, signaled to them, and they should glorify God morning and evening. So the Quran uses the word wahi for different purposes. So we will discuss inshallah. For example, when the God communicates with all his creatures through wahi, he says to the angels, when your Lord revealed to the angels, yuhi, the word is used, I am with you so steady and faithful. And to the animals, and your Lord revealed to the bee, saying, وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ. So your Lord revealed, made a wahi to the bee, and saying that make hives in the mountains and in the trees and in what man builds. Even in inanimate objects like stones. On that day, the earth shall relate its news, because your Lord had inspired it or revealed to the earth. So here, Allah, here, you see the arrow, right? Guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So, رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. So here, again, the same word is used. Wahi, Allah makes wahi to the earth.
Okay.
And also, sorry, Majid, you want to say something?
No, John. Okay.
Christian, are you okay?
I'm
Perfect.
I am totally following you.
Thank you. And he set them up as 7 heavens. Here the verse is talking about the heavens, the sky, in 2 days, and in the second day, and revealed in each heaven its affair. وَأَوْحَى فِي كُلِّ سَمَاءِ أَمْرَهَا. So Allah uses again أوحى, wahi, for the heavens. So what is wahi? The root of wahi, as we said, meaning is it has a quickness and also secretness. Therefore, refers to a communication that's swift, very quick. It may also be secret or allegorical in nature, and the message can be conveyed verbally in writing or by gestures. So you can write wahi in Arabic when you say I wahi wahaytuhu. It means either you signaled, you use sign, or you wrote. You didn't say directly. That seems. See here the verse from Zechariah. He emerged before his people from the temple and signaled to them. فَأُوحَى إِلَيْهِمْ. So he signaled to them that they should glorify Allah in the morning and evening. So here we see that a human being is revealing, doing wahi. So not just the good meanings that are bad in bad ways, it's also accepted. So how whispering of shaitan is also referred as wahi. So that is how for every prophet we appointed as enemy the devils from among humans and jinns. We can discuss these meanings later if you want. Who inspire each other with flashy words. Yuhi ba'duhum. Yuhi ba'duhum. So here it is also used wahi. Deceptively, had your Lord wished, they would not have done it. So leave them with what they fabricate. Also, indeed, the Satans inspire their friends to dispute with you. ليوحون. So, revelation of the message is a type of direct spiritual link between the heavenly host and the messenger's inner personality. That is because of unique traits within him which qualify him for this unique spiritual link. This is general understanding of Wahy. The Wahy is link between God, the divine one, and his messengers or her messengers. Hence, spiritual revelations in which he clearly sees the high heavens without confusion and without vagueness are made possible for the prophet. Such a revelation is different from being inspired with vague knowledge, as its source is not clear, like Wahy, because this is called ilham, and it can come from any kind of source. Can come from a human, they can come from unconscious part of a human, or as we saw, it can come from even devil or satans if they exist. So how does God speak to human beings? It's not possible for any human being that God should speak to him or her unless it be by revelation, or from behind a veil, or that he sends a messenger to reveal what he wills by his permission. Verily, he is the most high and the most wise. So what we see here? We see here God does speak to human beings, but does not speak directly. She speaks either by revelation, or from behind the veil, or he sends a messenger, like the angel. What was his name?
Jibril.
Yeah, Jibrail or Gabriel. So he uses his messenger to give his words. But here, messenger can also mean prophet himself. So a prophet comes and tells you what God wants. According to this verse, that is also the way God speaks to human beings. So as we said, there are three ways. So how? By revelation, meaning blasting into his soul and casting into his inside, through which the recipient of the revelation feels as though a brilliant page has been written in his soul. This type of revelation may also occur as a vision in a dream. So this is direct revelation. God directly speaks to the person in a way the person realizes that comes from God, or the person can see it during sleeping as well. That's also part of direct revelation. And the second is behind the veil. He speaks to him in a plain speech, the sounds of which he hears but without seeing the form, like the way God spoke to Moses by creating a voice in the air, shrilling in his ears or coming at him from everywhere, or the way he spoke to Prophet ﷺ on the Mi'raj, night of ascensions. This is traditional. Again, I am bringing from some sources from Hadith. So what we see from behind the veil, there is a understanding that God spoke to Moses. Although Jewish traditions believe that God directly spoke to Moses, not as it is presented here, and put his sound in the air, shrilling in the ears of Moses. No. Jewish tradition believe that it was done directly, but who knows? This is the Muslim tradition, by the way. So speaking from behind the veil is likening it to someone hidden away and speaking. So it is also wahi, as we said, wahi is kind of secret. Alternatively, what is meant by the veil is a figurative veil on account of the enormity of the gulf between the perfection of the necessity being, the God, sorry guys, the divine, and the imperfection of the contingent being. So these are philosophical terms. Sorry for using those. Necessary being here is divine, the God, and the contingent being here is human being. So, and actually everything else, by the way. So what veil means? Quran says that Allah talks to us behind the veil. So what veil means? Veil can also mean possibly actually the distance between the divine and non-divine beings, and it is huge and gigantic. There is a gigantic gulf between us. So maybe that is kind of referred as veil. Or he should send a messenger, one of the angels, like we said, Jibril, and he reveal whatsoever he will by his leave, either casting upon his earring or scratching in his heart. So as we said actually in the beginning, like Allah possibly makes the person realize that the words are coming from Allah. And in those three ways, inspiration, speaking, and sending an angel, we have revealed to thee of a spirit of our abiding. These methods of revelation are meant generally. As our prophet, revelation would sometimes come to him in dreams. This was mostly at the beginning of his prophethood, and at others as direct revelation from God without the use of any angel, which happened apparently according to some narrations, traditions, as an intermediary, and thirdly using Gabriel as an intermediary. However, Quranic revelation was exclusively via the latter two. So the dreams are not necessarily Quranic revelation. Although we believe that, traditionally it's believed that Muhammad received dreams, but these are generally thought they are not Quranic revelation. They are revelations out of Quran. So that's why when we say Quranic revelation, it is mostly either, not mostly, definitely, traditionally, by the way, definitely either by Jibril himself, from Allah to Jibril, or directly from God without any angel. So Al-Harith ibn Hisham asked Prophet, O Messenger of God, how does revelation come to you? So he said, sometimes it comes to me like salsala, clanging of a bell. It is the most difficult kind for me. When it leaves me, I remember what is said. But sometimes the angel comes to me in the form of a man and speaks to me, and I remember what he says. It is the easiest form. This hadith is almost mutawatir, traditionally again. This expression, the clanging of a bell, informs us the severity of the impact because the repetitiveness of incessant noise has an effect on one's sense of hearing. Just imagine, like a very, very, very high sound coming to your ears, and we know that sound can actually blow your ear, and that's the way Prophet expressed it, like a bell was clanging next to my ear, and it was that high. So it is as if it grabs the core of the heart, grabbing repeatedly and forcefully. Hence, he said, I thought that my soul would be taken. This is the Prophet's his own words. It is likely that this clanking was a prelude to revelation coming to him. So he kind of These are all traditional, by the way. As I said, they can all be challenged, which I expect you to challenge next week in your speaks. Which, by the way, I didn't forget. We will finish soon, and you will all. No, Majid, don't laugh too much.
10 minutes, I'm going. I'm just at the time.
Okay, then we can finish it now and continue next week. So you are prepared, right?
I prepared just something very quick because I don't have time. I had a lot of work, so
That's okay. That's okay. That's
I've
okay.
something very quick, so we can discuss about it.
Christian,
Of course, I am prepared.
Yeah, of course. Oh, pardon, Monsieur Christian. Of course.
Sorry?
Ah.
Come
so
again?
if we don't have enough time, we will do what? We will stop it here, and we will continue hopefully next week from here. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you, Musab. It's very interesting. Very interesting, especially about the wahi. I love that.
Okay, I stopped my sharing. Done. So now it is your time, guys. Let's see what we have. Majid, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'm going to go first because it's short. I just want to tell you what I have done about this. Because after that I have to quit because I'm people are waiting for me. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I just have time this next weekend, last weekend to go on internet, and I find my source is a website which called Islamophile in French. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the compilation of the Quran, of course. I read it, so I noted some important things. The first is that in the beginning of the revelation, they don't need to compilate the Quran. Why? So that's the question that I asked to myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the presence of the Prophet Muhammad. You know, I found the answer. So the Prophet is here, so he is completely he is the revelation. So we don't need to compilate the Quran when he was here. Okay, that's the first thing. Another thing that another question that I asked to myself, it's is it possible that there were some mistakes? So you talked about it before, I know. Is there any mistake during the compilation? Because it was such a big work, and during a long time, 20, I don't know how many, 26, 23
years.
How many?
23 years.
Sorry, 23 years. So I asked this question. So I found some answer. I discovered that there were a lot of conflicts. Sorry in my English, and if you don't understand, I repeat it very slowly.
Yeah, thank you.
There were a lot of conflicts. There is a war, a big war, where the reciters, you know, were dead. A lot of them during the war.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to design Abu Bakr, you know, just one, compilate the Quran. Are you okay with that?
Okay.
Yeah, and I found something. I found something about the dialogue of Abu Bakr and Omar. Very interesting. I said I discovered so that in this dialogue, very interesting, very spiritual dialogue, that the answer of my question is they don't make mistakes because they have a big faith, you know, of their faith. Those three people, Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the other guy, Zayn ibn Tahlib, you know. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I am following.
That's only thing that I was reading about it. It's about these things, that if there is mistakes or not? When I read this article on internet, my answer is that no. I completely agree with that point of view that the Quran is very real. So I found a citation about a guy whose name is William Muir. Do you know it?
Who again?
William Muir. No?
No. Can you write it down?
Yeah.
If you type it, let me see. No.
No?
No.
It's a researcher, maybe. I know.
Mhm.
And its citation is the Quran, by its contents and orders, strongly expresses the precision of its compilation.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to say. That's all.
Okay, perfect.
I would have. I wanted to have many times to make a lot of research on this, but I cannot. I don't have time. Sorry. That's all.
Thank you very much. And shall we go with Christian?
Yeah, I quickly put it into the name of William Moore. I put it into the Wikipedia, and I posted the Wikipedia file. My text, my homework was, I was thinking a lot about like what to talk or what to write about, because there are so many aspects. And I decided in the end, I stuck with the so-called narrative culture during the revelation. I wrote it down so I can spread that. The text parts of the scripture we address as Quran have been revealed into a very specific human context. And I don't mean a certain cultural or religious or governmental context. Although all this is valid for the text and exegesis, but I mean one specific thing, the proceeding how to deal with information. In Arabia of the 6th and 7th century, the distribution of information and news and even gossip was different compared to 21st century. Knowledge about politics, war, or social celebrities were spread together with traveling merchants, caravans of trade, and wanderers, sometimes also with war parties and armies. So there was no instant notification system like we have today when we get a message when Beyoncé tweets a photo about her dress she wears. Quran was revealed into a rich and diverse culture of narration. There were people who would make a living out of reporting and reciting stories and news. There were people we today would label certain people as professionals who were able to memorize and reproduce texts. And with a rather low amount of people being able to read and write, those narrators had an essential position in the late antique Arabic cultures. We need to assume that Prophet Muhammad was, at least in regard to these skills, one of those people. He traveled as a merchant for his later wife, Khadija, in regard to trade business, and he was the person to recite the message of Allah, the verses of the collection, what we are calling Quran now. So actually, Allah took the culture of Arabic narration into account. A lot of stories in the Quran are expected to be known by the audience, by the people who would hear the message. Quran also does not mention a lot of names of historical people or locations or groups, except the biblical ones. A lot of biblical people are in the Quran. Even the story of Lut, which is one of the central stories in Quran and heavily used against us, this story is barely scratched, as if Allah knew the target group would know about it. So from the very beginning, and especially after Hijrah, people with those narrative and recitative skills took care of memorizing and also reciting the revealed text. So that's it totally fits with your approach, Majid. So I was thinking, okay, who was that? Who were those people? And the names of such people were Abdullah ibn Masud, Ubayy ibn Kab, and Sa'id ibn Tabir, who also and exactly, and he also wrote down a lot of texts in behalf and in cooperation with Muhammad. So they were very close in that to write texts down, actually. Some people would call him
I'm very sorry, Christian.
Yes,
I
I'm sorry.
Stop the discussion because I have to go. I just want to say you goodbye.
Sorry.
I'm very, very sorry. Okay, you are very studious. My answer is very, very quick. So next time I will be more studious than this time. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I wrote it down anyway, so you will get it.
Okay. Thanks.
It's only a paragraph now. Sorry.
Sorry. Before Majid goes, Majid, next session, just try to write, if you want, you try to see the verses about the Wahi, the revelation itself, and make something out of it, or try to understand, or this is homework, by the way, or you can check the Quranic sciences, and we shortly see about what they are, and one of them very, very briefly explain.
Okay. Musab, can you write it for me, please? The question.
Sure. Yeah.
Please, because I'm very, very. I have to go very fast now. Can you write it and I do it for you?
I will write it down now.
Okay, super. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Musab. Thank you, Christian. Goodbye, guys. Thank you.
All right. Let me finish my last paragraph, and then I'm done. It's too long, I know, but it's like everything around me is too long. Where were I? Is that okay, or shall I?
Yeah, I'm listening.
All right. So we were with Sa'id, exactly. But we will also know about women during that time who memorized Quranic texts. We even have their names. And they worked in actually running house mosques and leading prayers. And we also need to account that Aisha was able to narrate and recite Quran as she compiled it. So it's not only a men's domain, but there were various women we know of that who compiled and memorized and narrated Quran, and they were encouraged by Muhammad to do that, actually. So when we go through Quran, we see the parts where stories, which we also can find in religious texts of Judaism and Christianity, that those stories were mentioned but not extensively re-narrated. They are just barely touched. Allah definitely took into account that there was already a story system in Arabia, and actually Allah used this fact in the narrative of the message to humankind. So actually Allah used he took into account, they know already about this story. I don't need to retell them the whole thing, but only the most important parts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Christian. And I would like to read as well, if you, as you said, you kind of shortened it. If you write it down, I would like to read as well, please.
Actually, I wrote it I almost only 5 or 10 sentences I added now, but mostly of that I recited them. I read them and read them to you. Yeah. So.
Yeah, perfect. Again, great. Then I still want to see if that's
of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's finish our session, inshallah, and hopefully see you next week. I will write the homework down, hopefully, and we will see. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. مع السلامة وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. استعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Take care, inshallah.
Thank you.